Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Lou Reviews, your destination for critical thinking in the realm of the unexplained. I am your host, Luis Jimenez. Before we get started today, of course, smash that like, share, and subscribe button. Share the show. Let everybody know we just went live. That definitely helps. And if you've done all of those things and you want to support the show even more, we've got a Patreon link in the description below. Our super chats are open. We want to say thank you to a new Patreon member, which I'll give a shout out to here quickly. Let me see here. I forgot to bring it up. Meryl Grillick. Meryl Grillick with a $10 a month Patreon. Thank you so damn much. That is incredibly generous of you. Thank you for the donation. Okay. With all of that stuff out of the way, what are we going to be talking about today? Well, today, Christopher Mellon writes a massive op-ed in, of course, the Debrief, the reliable and sturdy and well-known institution, journalistic institution that is the Debrief, was the medium in which Christopher Mellon released this 60-something page op-ed about the unfinished Arrow reports on UAP. We're also going to discuss, let's see here, what else? We're going to discuss Ross Coulthart, and, you know, he's up to his old bullshit right now. Chris Lehto opens up about his mental health, and the Senate Armed Services Committee says the quiet part out loud. It's a drone problem. And then lastly, the UFO Hate Group turns on itself. Man, it has been a crazy week for that. And I don't know how much really we're going to get into that, to be honest with you. I think I'm going to go more into that next week because I was challenged to take a look at some context in which things were said. And I've been looking at context and I've been looking at things, and yeah, I think I might have to dedicate an entire show to just that. If I even want to waste the time, because honestly, I don't know how anybody could go back on some of those things, not all of them, but some of those things and go, yeah, it's a very angry person writing those things with viewpoints that are pretty gross. But again, we'll touch on that at some time. The first thing, though, that I wanted to open up with was this. I know we touched on this last week, but I wanted to just hit it again because this is the full version of the quote from the Kurt J. Mungle show. And I didn't get to hear the second part of this. And I think the second part of this, to me, is the most telling. So I wanted to cover this and just really hammer this home. So let's get into it. Hold on a second, get a message here. Okay. So this is Richard Dolan being interviewed by Kurt J. Mungle on Theories of Everything. And I will include this link in the show notes after the show. So I apologize if they're not there right now. I got caught up with some stuff today and I didn't get to put all the links in the show notes, but they will be there after the show. I am keeping track of them. So this is Kurt expressing his frustrations with the current UFO discussion. So let's go into this. And of course, want to say hello to everyone who's here in the chat. Before we do that, Simon Fly, Stone Dave, Dana Shadell, our member here, Dana Shadell, Arlene Atkins, I'm not here, this isn't happening. Thank you all so damn much for being here. And I also saw Justin S. was here in UFO Cholo. What's going on? B. Baker, Pat Calabria, and M. Kelly, member M. Kelly. Thank you all so damn much for being here. Okay, so let's get started with this clip, shall we?
Oh, my last UFO interview, my last interview with a UFO bigwig was 8 months ago. And in part, the reason for the lack of frequency with this topic is because I've backed away. I've backed away. Why? Because I'm disappointed and I'm dismayed.
Disappointed and dismayed? Yeah, I feel that. He's backed away from the UFO topic. Disappointed, dismayed. He continues, but before he continues, fair use. We are critiquing and commenting on the video we are sharing. This is covered under fair use and allowable by law. And again, we'll have the link for this full video in the description below.
So the reason is that there's always the promise of some tangible governmental or scientifically sanctioned data that's just around the corner. There was the rumor of 40 new whistleblowers coming forward. It never panned out, but even if it was 140, then it's the next question is, so what? Because there's only so much that talking can do.
Right.
And I see acrimony developing in the people who are involved in this scene. So I went to the Soul Foundation, the Soul Conference, and the most euphoric people there were the attendees. And like the rest of the people who are actually involved.
Okay, this to me was the most interesting part. He goes to the Soul Foundation.
So I went to the Soul Foundation, the Soul Conference.
The most euphoric people there. The most euphoric. The ones that are happiest, that are excited and amped to be there are the people sitting in the audience, which is, they should be, you know, based off the information that they've been getting from their heroes at the Soul Foundation. They have a sense of euphoric excitement. They're excited about the things Gary Nolan's going to say. They're excited about the things they're going to hear from David Grusch. They're excited about all of these presentations by Kevin Knuth and all of these scientists, right, that are dedicating their lives to discovering what's really going on in the UFO phenomenon. But listen to what he says next.
Were the attendees. And like the rest of the people who are actually involved, they're calloused.
The rest of the people that are involved, in other words, the speakers, the organizers, the people who have the claims, are calloused and embattled. Why? You're sitting on the greatest secret in the world. Why would you be calloused and embattled? Why would you not be more euphoric than the audience that you're about to present this game-changing information to? And even Kurt caught on it. Like,
they're embattled, and I see this dyspeptic attitude also growing on the part of the UFO community for people who have been in it. Like, you can actually tell how long have you been in it by how bitter are you. So I see this jadedness developing in myself as well, and luckily I'm.
So he sees it. He sees it, and he stepped back in time to catch himself before that turned into a visible frustration. And this is what makes Kurt. Like, he is aware enough of himself to make a call like that. But that the information and the people that he was talking to, but more specifically, the things that he was seeing, dismayed him. Why? Because if there was something to this, if we were on the cusp of some great knowledge, the amount of excitement that would be boiling over, not only in media, but just in the scientific community. And I've been spending a lot of time in spaces this week just because I've had the time. I've been sick this whole week. And yeah, it's been interesting. But it is also just wild what people use as facts and evidence. And you've had people like Kurt who have gone into this with open minds, open hearts, willing and ready to genuinely look at this information and data, and he's seen nothing. And he's talked to them all, just like I have. And what he says is like, you know, we were supposed to get 40 whistleblowers, and that never panned out. It doesn't matter if it's 140 whistleblowers, because at some point you're gonna be like, okay, well, so what? Where's the evidence? Where's the tangible, you know, finger licking good evidence? It's not there. And if it was there, it would certainly have a lot more buzz than the Hadron Collider. It would have a lot more buzz than the James Webb Telescope, like genuine like cusp of scientific breakthroughs. The amount of astrologists and astronomers and armchair astrologers that are so excited to either get access to the James Webb or just simply look at the data that the James Webb is gathering, excuse me. There is no buzz like that around anything having to do with the paranormal. There's no buzz like that for remote viewing. There's no buzz like that for psychokinesis. There's no buzz like that for anything. UFOs, USOs. The scientific community is not excited or foaming at the mouth for any aspect relating to the paranormal, human consciousness, you know, part of this discussion. I mean, there are obviously studies of the human consciousness. There's studies of, you know, human anatomy. And we're learning things about that stuff every single day. And I think, honestly, things like discovering the Higgs boson might even provide more answers to things like, what is consciousness? What I'm tired of is people assigning consciousness anomalies to some greater, bigger thing that there's no evidence for. People get intuitions all the time. You hear about it all the time. That doesn't make you, you know, I don't think anybody has more of a ability to channel those things than another person. I think a lot of those things come from literally early man being afraid to be eaten alive, having to have your head on a swivel constantly because you were genuinely surviving. And all of those instincts and all of those predatory instincts and all of that intuition and that knowledge is ingrained in us. And so when something dangerous happens or we get, you know, like you hear about stories about how moms, you know, from across the country knew there was something wrong with their son. Like, yeah, I mean, okay. There's no explanation for that stuff yet. And people are looking at it and have been looking at it for a long time. But I can promise you that no one at the Noetic Institute of Science has figured this out. I've been looking and educating myself on that aspect of the conversation because, you know, and I agree that when we do figure out whatever this phenomenon is, and I think everyone's in agreement that something's going on, humans are experiencing something, Now, is that something tangible? Is that something from somewhere else? Is that something created by us? There's so many questions to it. And the explanations that noetic scientists has put forth has, and it's been going on since the 1930s, these theories and these ideas, it has not moved the scientific needle whatsoever. There is no university that you can go to that specializes in parapsychology. There's no university that you can go to that specializes in unidentified aerial phenomena. There's no study group. There's no doctorate degree for UFOs and ufology. Ufology is a hobby. And I would call parapsychology a pseudoscience. And I'm not just saying that. That is the consensus for the majority of everyone living on this planet. Does it mean it's right? No. Can we have conversations about it and explore these ideas? Sure. But the second you start bringing in articles and calling them peer-reviewed papers, or you bring in studies that have a sample size that's less than 0.000000001% of the human population, that's not good enough. Interesting, intriguing, but it hasn't been interesting and intriguing or compelling enough for a university to be like, okay, we need to open up an entire division, an entire study, ward, whatever you want to call it, where we get the best minds to talk about this and actually try to label it, measure it, scientifically verify it. And it's not like the opportunity hasn't been there. Like I said, they've been pushing these ideas since the 30s. So it just going back to Kurt J. Mungle, it's frustrating. Nobody wants to be a skeptic. Like, being a skeptic isn't fun. Be a hell of a lot more fun to be like, yeah, aliens are here. Way more fun. Yes, telekinesis is real. I could remote view things across the planet. That would be awesome. But as far as I can tell, there's no evidence of those things. And we are setting up, because I could also say that I've never tried remote viewing. So therefore, how could I rule it out? Okay. So I've been approached by an expert remote viewer with over, I think he said 15 years of experience. He's going to give me targets. He's going to teach me how to do it for free. Apparently these are classes that he offers, so I don't have to pay for the classes. And I can even bring an independent witness, which I found one, to verify that I'm either hitting these targets or missing these targets. And I have vowed to genuinely give it a real effort. So we'll see where that goes. And if there are 10 remote viewing targets that I nail all 10 and we can prove and show, okay, yeah, this was a controlled experiment. And then we have the witness that goes, yeah, I saw it all. We recorded it. And he hit all 10. Then I can maybe walk back and go, okay, that was cool. Still not evidence. I could have just guessed 10 lucky targets. It's possible. It's not impossible. Not likely. But if we were able to record something like that is that accurate, which I don't even think he's putting that expectation on it. He's not doing anything. I'm just saying the best case scenario. You know, I think that would grab some people's attention. I really do. So So we'll find out. But I can understand just being in this field and feeling this level of frustration and this idea that you could tell how jaded or how long people have been in the community, the UFO discussion, by how jaded they are. If they've been in this discussion for over 2 years, 3 years, you know what? I'll just say 5, just to give them a real long runway to verify it for themselves. Every single investigator, every single voice, every single podcaster, every single journalist and reporter, all of them hit a wall with this topic. And that wall is, I don't think this is real. And they've got 2 paths to take. If they're not upset, they've chosen the path to lean into the woo and not really rely on facts and just stick to the fun, stick to the mystery, stick to the what if and the trust me bros, and take my classes and check out my book. And it's incredibly lucrative. And I'll just tell you, a much easier path, especially when you just accept it. Because then all of these lies and all of these red flags, they just don't bother you as much. Because, hey, we're paying the bills with this shit. This is a job now. And I got to make sure that there's always something to talk about. Or you could take the other path of, yeah, I don't think there's anything to this, and I'm going to really start questioning this now. And with that, rarely comes books and, encouragement. It's building by the day because I think more and more people are hitting this wall, just like Kurt. This was a guy who he'll explain. You know what? I told you guys about this Canadian roundtable meeting with members of Parliament and Dave Scott and Nicole Sackich and Sean Cahill. And Daniel Otis was in there. I don't think anybody knew that. I'm telling you that now. And Kurt Mungle, I learned, was now also in that group of people. Listen to what happens. It sounds very similar to the big phone home.
I can identify it before it becomes something significant, so I've backed away. And there's just something about this topic that's not right, man. There's something about it.
It's always been like that.
Where have we heard that?
Yeah, no, I feel your pain.
Where have we heard that? There's something about this topic that's just not right, man. I think that was the last UCR show. When I screamed at the top of my lungs, like, look, I don't know what's going on, but whatever's going on with this, it's not right. There's something not right here. And Kurt is finally starting to see it. Partly, I think, because he's gotten a lot of shit, primarily from Steve Cambion. And I have also given him some shit as well. A lot, not as direct or as sharp as Cambion, but like, hey, why aren't you paying attention to these kind of things or asking these kind of things? Like, he sees it. He reads every comment. I know that for a fact. He reads everything. He's very aware of what his audience is saying and thinking. And I'm sure it was also difficult to back off of that topic because when you look at Kurt Mungle's channel, his most popular, most viewed things or videos are on the UFO topic.
I get it. I get what you're saying. I'm trying to figure out, like,
I've also been burned. So I don't know.
How?
Maybe I'll keep this in. Or maybe I'll take this out. I don't know. But
he's also been burned.
Approximately 1 or 2 years ago, there was this Canadian government association, something that was supposed to develop between the Canadian government and the USA UFO people who have knowledge. I won't
That's
say
Cahill. It's Cahill.
Grant Cameron
it's Cahill
was
and
involved in
Elizondo.
this, and people.
It's Cahill and Elizondo. That's who it was. And it was Science fucking Bob. I mean, Science Bob is the one who let that out of the bag. And I know for a fact that it was Cahill who was helping do this because Dave Scott told me. Dave Scott and Nicole Sackich called me because they were worried about the things that they were seeing in this Canadian Parliament bullshit thing that Cahill was trying to do. And they were asking me questions about how Cahill and these guys and Elizondo were when it came to the big phone home and how they burned me. And now Kurt Mungo's getting burned. Like, more validation for this guy. Unreal. And he's a good dude. Kurt's a good dude.
You're watching, you can look, you can ask Grant himself. It's just not my place to speak
Grant
about
Cameron.
this. But there was an MP called Larry Maguire who wanted to host a panel, again, between the MPs in Canada and then the bigwigs.
The bigwigs.
And I was part of the Canadian government requested that I be a mediator because of my background in physics and the fact that I'm Canadian, and then that I know somewhat about this topic while not being a ufologist. So if anything, I'm a mathematical physics researcher who dabbles sometimes in the phenomenon. Sure. They like that. They felt like it was grounded or analytical for whatever reason. Then they set up I believe it was like 2 meetings, and I was there. Again, you could ask Grant Cameron, and then it was shut down because of some of the people who were involved on the U.S. side.
Cahill.
They didn't like that.
Elizondo.
They didn't like that
Mellon.
if I was to be some of it was my fault. They didn't like that if I was to be involved, it would somehow be on YouTube, and then it would be UFO-tainment. They didn't.
Fucking Sean Cahill. How many times have we heard him bitch about UFO-tainment? I said this shit over a year ago, man. Go and check the videos. Go check the videos. It was probably that interview that I did with Thin Lizzie Borden, because we also talked about in that interview how Sean Cahill berated Melinda Leslie in front of a lot of people at a UFO con in Vegas. And now he's sabotaging this meeting because if I had to take a guess, these meetings happened after the whole apple juice interview that they did on Kurt's show, where they looked like fucking idiots. And because of that, they didn't want to include Kurt Mungo on this roundtable. And they threw the excuse of, well, we don't want this to be seen as entertainment. But they want it to be seen as entertainment when they're selling the TV show. Or when they're doing they're making the pilot about, transferring metals from North Carolina to some fucking research facility in Texas or something. Then it's okay when it's UFOtainment. Seasons 1 and 2 of Unidentified, that's not UFOtainment. Not at all. Because Cahill's in it. That UFO podcast, whose song, like their opening music, it's been Sean Cahill's fucking Goblin Problem song. Like, the guy writes music based around alien visitations, and he's bitching about UFOtainment. Oh, fuck. I really dislike Sean Cahill. The biggest goonball in this. Oh, man, I don't like that guy. Such an asshole. And that's been documented over and over again.
They didn't want it. They thought it would be too popular. They wanted these meetings to be done in a more clandestine manner. And
that's the same shit I got about the big phone home. When I was like, and this was weeks into the process. I don't know, Cahill's like, I don't know about this big phone home shit. Makes me think of E.T. and fucking movies and kitty shit. Well, too bad, motherfucker. Like, I've been asking you guys what you wanted to call this for over a month. And we're not changing it now because we've got the posters made. Everything's done. The hashtag's been, like, we've already been using it. It's going to be the big phone home. And from a marketing standpoint, I thought it was way better than anything those idiots. Well, they didn't even come up with anything. They just wanted something else because they didn't want it to be seen. They didn't want it to be too popular. That's why they didn't use the hashtags. That's why they didn't tweet about it. That's why there was no enthusiasm about it whatsoever behind the scenes. There wasn't. Go back and look. They did not promote the event whatsoever. And if they did, it was right before they came on. They had weeks. I planned with them behind the scenes for weeks. Hey guys, I think the thing that's going to make this the most effective, the most popular, is if you guys specifically use the hashtags every single time you tweet. Tweet about the event at least once every day in the build-up to the first big phone home. We had 10,000 people in that live stream without their help. Just their name recognition. That was it. If they had actually used their social media influence to promote the big phone home, it would have been massive. We would have gotten way bigger names than we got. And we got some big fucking names on the first big phone home. But they would have been even bigger. I mean, we had Dave Foley, we had Jeremy Corbell. I think we had George Knapp for a hot second. If not, I spoke to George Knapp on the phone I definitely spoke to him on a private phone call with him and Corbell. I think they were just vetting me. God, we had Elizondo, we had Kay. I mean, we had everyone. And really, the only person that actually, one of the few people, not the only person, I mean, pretty much everyone else helped promote the event, except for the big names. Corbell did promote it. I will say that.
And that left a sour taste in my mouth.
I'll look into it, or we can maybe even talk
I'll look
privately
into it. No, he won't.
About it or not. I can't talk to Grant. Look, I mean, the thing is, you got me thinking. I don't know how jaded I am.
He's not jaded at all.
These other folks.
Because he's selling books. He's on TV shows. He's traveling the country. He's on Ancient Aliens. If he actually said something like what Kurt Mungle just said, the truth, there go the books. There go the Ancient Aliens. All that shit goes away. There's a good reason. Anyway, I had to talk. That went way longer than I was hoping, but like so many things about what was just said here in this short time, especially by Kurt. I mean, literally a spitting image of what happened with Big Phone Home. Almost the exact same thing. These guys never wanted it. They don't want UFO disclosure. They don't fight for it whatsoever. When you actually make the event for them to use their voice and their influence, they don't show up. They just go on certain podcasts and TMZ and, News Nation, and they only tell their stories there with Ross Coulthart. That's it, dude. They don't advocate, like, when the Schumer amendment was looking to get axed, where were the calls from Elizondo and Cahill and Coulthart and Zabel and all of these UFO, dickheads? Why were they not yelling at the top of their lungs, hey, Senator Gillibrand, we need your help on this Schumer amendment. Hey, Rubio, we would love for you to help us and just get the word out about this amendment. They're trying to cut it. Can you ask your colleagues what the fuck's going on? They didn't do any of that. Just like when Kurt Mungle shows up to the fucking Soul Foundation, everyone behind the scenes who's presenting the information is jaded and bitter. Why? The audience is more euphoric. The people in the spaces are more euphoric. The fans are way more euphoric. The people buying tickets to the cons are way more euphoric than the people making the presentations. And that just doesn't go for Soul. I promise you, if you're the person who goes to UFO conventions, pay attention to who's more excited. The person giving the presentation, especially if it's a whistleblower presentation, see how excited they are and how amped they are to give this information versus how amped and how excited and how privileged people are just to listen to it. It's wild, man. It is wild. Okay, so that's that. Let's get to Twitter here, shall we? And let's take a look at my bookmarks so we can go over exactly what else we're going to talk about. Because, of course, as you guys know, I bookmark everything for my show. So many silly things here. Okay, so what do I want to talk about next? I've already covered this once, but it's always worth going over again because we're about to... if I'm not mistaken, up here somewhere, I think we got another Ross Coulthart thing. And if we don't, that's fine. It's always great to just remind ourselves of why Ross Coulthart is not a reliable person when it comes to information on UAPs. And M. Kelly, who's in the chat, tagged me in this again. So thanks again for sending me this. This is something, like I said, we've already covered on this show. But essentially, Ross Coulthart didn't get fired, but his contract didn't get renewed because of the gross inaccuracies that he had telling a story about child abuse within Parliament. And he was taking the stories of the accuser and just blindly trusting them and then making news segments about it and getting members of Parliament and a lot. This was a massive scandal based on 100% lies. They had to retract this story. They didn't renew Ross Coulthart's contract, and they had to go back and correct it. And this is part of it. We're not going to watch this whole thing.
Let's take a trip.
I will include this link as well in the description below. Just make a copy of it. Once the show's over, I'll put all these links in there, you guys. So you have them both on podcasts and you have them on YouTube here. I will make sure to put all of these links in there. Again, fair use. We are critiquing and covering the videos we are sharing. This is covered under fair use and allowable by law, although you cannot see the fair use banner because it's over white. So let's put it there. Let's put it there. Making it so there we go. All right, so let's listen to this here real quick.
A trip down memory lane to examine this 60 Minutes special investigation from July 2015.
Britain's biggest ever scandal is about to explode.
In late 2014, a man known only as Nick sparked an ill-fated investigation by London's Metropolitan Police into claims of torture, child abuse and murder by high-ranking British politicians.
They and I believe what Nick is saying is to be credible and to be true.
The police investigation later fell apart, no charges were ever brought, and then, earlier this month, came this news.
Nick nicked. A man who falsely claimed he had been raped and tortured as a boy by a VIP pedophile ring is to face trial for child sex offences. Allegations by Nick against bigwigs Sir Ted Heath, Leon Britton, Harvey Proctor and Lord Bramall sparked a £3 million witch hunt by police.
Even more significantly, Nick may also face charges of fraud and perversion of the course of justice.
Prosecutors are considering whether he should be charged for allegedly lying about being abused as a child and then fraudulently claiming compensation for the ordeal.
So, what's that to us? Well, without Nick, Australia might never have been treated to that 60 Minutes special investigation, in which the programme's then new star, 5-time Walkley Award winner Ross Coulthart, made this extravagant promise.
Without question, the biggest political scandal Britain has ever faced will be exposed tonight. It involves a secret network of the highest office holders in the land, past and current members of Parliament, cabinet ministers, judges, diplomats, even one of the country's top spies. These men are accused of some of the most sadistic child sexual abuse imaginable on hundreds of victims. some as young as 8.
Nick was not interviewed on 60 Minutes, but his evidence provided vital support for that remarkable claim. Tonight, we're going to examine that 60 Minutes story, which reported astonishing allegations with very little skepticism or doubt.
Astonishing allegations, just like UFOs, with very little skepticism or doubt. And just listen to how confident, again, I mean, is this familiar to you guys? The way he presents predators within Parliament? You could easily sub UAP and you get the exact same Ross Coulthart. And again, this was a big signing for BBC, having Ross Coulthart, 5-time Walkie winner, right? This is his first story out of the gate, and he royally, no pun intended, fucked it up.
Award winner Ross Coulthart made this extravagant promise.
Without question, the biggest political scandal Britain has ever faced will be exposed tonight.
Yeah, he said the same thing about ball shavings and all sorts of shit. A craft so big it can't be moved. He buys laptops for YouTubers like Jay Anderson at Project Unity. He's not a good guy. And he's definitely not a good journalist. And that's not opinion. That's fact. He grossly misrepresented this story. So bad that 60 Minutes had to fucking correct it. And people went to jail over this, but not Ross. He just reported on it. The only people who got in trouble was the network. And the repercussion for Ross was, well, we're not renewing your contract. These people are insanely unreliable. But keep complaining about me. I'm the problem, right? I'm the problem. But anyway, M. Kelly, thanks for that link. It's always fun to come back and revisit that madness. Okay, let's see here. What else did I want to cover? A lot of just dramatic bull. Danny Sheehan, of course, has got some more crazy claims that Christian Harloff is still this useful idiot that is interviewing people as fucking nuts and as crazy as Danny Sheehan. Again, a lawyer with no evidence is making all these fantastical claims. But let's listen to what he says to, and of course, people like UAP Jane, super excited. Daniel Sheehan says multiple firsthand UFO witnesses are ready to testify to Congress. We'll see. We'll see.
You mentioned these particular whistleblowers that are coming
again,
through. Or
whistleblowers that have never panned out, according to Kurt Jaimungal. We still have yet to see these 40 whistleblowers. Arrow's dying to hear from them. Congress has written the laws that are put in place for them to be protected. There are whistleblower protections specific to UAP now and reverse engineered programs where they can come forward and be protected by the law and Congress. So what's the holdup?
New witnesses. And I asked Tim Gallaudet when he was on the show, and I heard you say the same thing when Ross Coulthart asked you. He asked you if you would testify. You said yes. I asked Tim Gallaudet if he would testify. He said yes. I think that, when you hear Tim Gallaudet, James Lukatsky talking about the things that he had seen and the breaching of the hole and the stuff that he talked to about with Jeremy Corbell, that they would want to get him. I would think that Carl Nell would be somebody they would want to get. Do you have any idea? Do you have any clue of who you think would be the people that should come forward, would come forward? And do you stick with the fact that you would absolutely go in there and testify yourself?
Oh, yeah, but we're... The ones you've mentioned are not the key people. The key people are the ones who've laid their hands directly on the craft.
Yeah.
They are the ones who may have engaged in a program to actually try to bring them down. Okay. To recover their technology. It's the kind of people that are directly involved in the back engineering program. That can give the Congress and the public the details of what it is they've been doing. not secondhand information, hearsay information. I was able to provide to Sean Kirkpatrick and Arrow the fact that I had seen the photographs,
right?
In an official capacity of a crash recovery. There wasn't any doubt about what it was. So clearly they had a crash recovery program, functioning. So I could tell him that. So it clearly is untrue for them to come out publicly and say they have been provided no credible evidence that there's a crash recovery program. I mean, that just was false. But the bottom line is, when you bring a person forward who says, not only have I seen photographs of crash recovery programs, I participated in them.
Do you think that's likely? Is that likely that they're going to get people like that, or do you think
they've already got people like that?
Okay, and so
they've already got people like that.
So yeah, they've already got people like that, Christian. And guess what? The laws are in place for them to come forward, and there's also an office for them to report it to. And if they don't trust that office, they can go directly to their local lawmaker, whether it be senator or congressman. And they can be protected by the law to tell their truth. But there's no buzz. Like, if that was genuinely happening, again, if there were 40 whistleblowers that had hands-on experiences with reverse engineered alien technology and craft and beings, and they worked on the programs, they could tell you where the facilities are. They could show you the pay stubs. They could show you the materials that they maybe smuggled out because they're a whistleblower. They can definitively 100% prove where these things are. There's 40 of them. There would be more buzz about this conversation than any James Webb telescope or any other scientific discussion happening right now. This would be the thing that every single news station would be talking about. But no, instead you get it on a movie review guy's channel who's good with comic books and movie references, and a lawyer a lawyer who, in my opinion, has overstated a lot of the things that he's been involved with. And as far as I can tell, is an attorney with zero evidence. He just says things. We've gone over Danny Sheehan so many times. We've had Danny on the show. It was one of my... that was one interview I was like, man, do we really want to bring this guy? But hey, it's the big phone home. Like, it's Danny Sheehan. He's Lou's attorney. All right, let's bring him on. But I've always had an issue with Danny Sheehan. Always. He's a believer. Full stop. He has not one. He is incapable of looking at this discussion from any other viewpoint other than it's real. Incapable of it. This was just cool. So this is Max Tegmark, says that our universe is part of a vast mathematical structure and that mathematics is discovered, not invented. This is just really cool to think about.
My guess is that every universe, everything that can be described mathematically exists, so that we're ultimately part of this incredible mathematical structure of which we can only be aware of a small part. The mathematical objects, such as the Platonic solids, for example, the tetrahedron, cuboctahedron, dodecahedron, icosahedron, they are things which some people would argue are just things invented by mathematicians. But many of my mathematician friends don't feel that they invented them. They feel that they discovered them, that they have an existence. And Plato himself, when he realized that there were 5 of them, he was free to invent whatever name he wanted for the dodecahedron, but he couldn't invent the 6th one because it doesn't exist. And I ultimately think that sense of existence and non-existence that mathematics gives us is exactly the same as what we're up against in physics. We don't say that we invented the planet Neptune, we discovered it. Mm-hmm. And I think that ultimately it's all mathematical structures, and that's what the laws of physics are gradually approximating and beginning and uncovering.
Just cool. Like the math is there. It's waiting to be discovered. And that's going to lead to major breakthrough in physics. Makes sense. You know, but again, we got a scientist saying it, and it's mathematical, and it sounds like it's going to be right, but this is a theory. You know, it's a theory, but it's a damn good one, I think. You know, and it's one that math and science is constantly chasing. Is all of those undiscovered physics laws. It's just cool. Okay, so this was probably one of the more validating moments in a while. Not in a while, but just another validating moment, I guess. So again, this is Senator Mark Kelly, who's a Democrat out of Arizona. And they are interviewing, you know, they have yearly or bi-yearly meetings with the Joint Chiefs of Staff with the Senate Armed Services Committee, and they ask questions on the things that have to do with national security. And so for years, we've been saying this is a drone issue. And let me be clear when I say that I think the things that a lot of people are seeing are drones. Definitely accounts for a lot of them, especially going back the last 20, 30 years. When you look at the drone swarm technology today, you could bet your ass that was available 20 years ago. If you see it today, it was available 20 years ago. And there was a very interesting photo put out. It was actually a Debrief article. We might even look at it here for a second, but there was a new drone submarine that the United States military just revealed, and it looks like a manta ray. If we're seeing it today, it's 20 years old. I don't think anybody's going to argue that. It's 20-year-old tech if they're unveiling it today for all the public to take a look at it from any angle they want. It's because they've already got something that's replaced it. So I think drones can account for a lot of misidentifications, but it's not the only thing that I think is contributing to these misidentifications. You've got balloons, air clutter, just straight misidentification, seeing a plane or a glare, thinking it's something else, seeing a balloon or see something move and thinking and attributing it to be something else, but they're just wrong. So I think that's what not all, but mostly all, 99.99999% of all fall within this category. And then you've got the rare diamond in the rough of, oh shit, there's not enough here for us to determine what this is. But in a lot of even those cases where you do get the diamond in the rough, the only reason why it is a diamond in the rough or considered a diamond in the rough is because there's not enough data. And so therefore it is unknown, classified as unknown. But if there was one more sensor or a ground witness or something some other piece of information that could corroborate or give you information from another angle on this object, according to Arrow, when they get that data, then that diamond in the rough, that unknown, becomes a known every time. So let's listen to what Staff Chairman General Charles Brown says about incursions on military installations.
All right. Well, thank you. Separate subject, the drone problem. Incursions on military installations have gone up and is a real threat to our national security. I think some of it is, hobbyists, but there are also foreign actors that are certainly involved here. In December,
foreign actors that are certainly involved here. So Iran, China, Russia. Those are my three usual suspects. Could be a combination of all three, where maybe they're all working on one tech. We've talked about many times the Tyler Rogoway story from a few years back, when he lays out this drone issue very, very well. And in that article, he describes that our enemies make the drones look weird on purpose. They make them look round and oddly shaped and weird looking on purpose. The reason they did that for the last 10, 15 years that they've been collecting this data on us is because they know that the stigma within the military is to not report weird shit in the sky. So our enemies knew that. So they designed the drones to look weird. And here's the thing, is the drone only costs $300-400 to make. Literally balsa wood, balloons, like really simple shit. The cheapest drones you can find. But again, just make it look weird. And then you attach a $90,000, $100,000, $500,000 listening or spying device onto this thing, and you can park it wherever the fuck you want, because you know that nobody's going to look up and go, oh my God, UFO, let me report this. Because the stigma was very high and has been high. And because they're afraid to report it because they don't want to be looked at as crazy. They don't want to lose any flying time, whatever the excuse is.
December, we saw large.
And that is what Aero has been doing. And this whole discussion has been doing since 2017 is bringing attention to this area of the sky and saying, we've got a big problem here. We've got a very big problem here. And our enemies are taking advantage of a national security hole that we created ourselves. And now they're talking about it out loud. Now they're actually able to address it. And I think the reason they're able to address it is because all of these offices are put in place. Now they're actually looking at it. And I think they're starting to get better answers on it. And I have a feeling, we'll learn here in this discussion that we're underprepared. We are drastically underprepared to respond to how quickly this technology becomes better. And you put a deterrent up, and then it's like driving a car off the lot. As soon as you drive it off the lot, as soon as you build it and construct it, it's obsolete because something newer that can evade that has already been made. But let's listen to them.
Number of drone incidents at Langley. We still don't know who was behind those. We had an F-16 about a year and a half ago in the Barry Goldwater range strike a drone. Not a lot of damage to the F-16. If it would have went down the intake, General, as we both know, that could have.
And we've heard this thing too here. Air safety is a big priority. When Elizondo, and what's funny is Elizondo and Mellon immediately retweeted this and said, yeah, it's drones. We've been saying it the whole time. Yeah, that's what we've been saying since 2017. And guess what? It's true. Every single time they talked about this discussion, go back and look. The first two things out of their mouth were national security and safety. It was never, ever, well, we need to find out what this extraterrestrial presence is, and then national security and safety. Extraterrestrial, otherworldly, NHI, none of those things were ever mentioned, ever in 2017. This has always been an air safety issue. This has always been a drone incursion issue. And it's becoming more of an issue because there are 10,000 balloons launched into our atmosphere every single day. And then I add on top of that all of the people who now have a drone, a commercial drone, whether they're flying it legally or illegally. And then add on top of that are adversarial drones. It's fucking scary. Like, nobody was hiding this. Nobody was hiding this. And even when we were doing the big phone home, we were drilling home to add legitimacy to this. Hey, Mr. Senator, hey, Miss, Congressman, so-and-so. We believe as American citizens that the UAP discussion is important because, number one, it's an air safety issue for our pilots and service members. Number two, it's a threat to our national security if there are adversarial drones in our atmosphere. Then we would hit them with being open and transparent and providing the American people with more information is more helpful, not less. Never once in the big phone home, not one of them, not one big phone home, 1, 2, or 3, did we ever use the words alien, extraterrestrial, UFO. Never once. And the reason why I stressed those things first is because that's what the figureheads were saying. That's what the New York Times said. That's what Blumenthal said. That's what Elizondo was saying. That's what Mellon was saying. They weren't hiding this part of it. And I think that's why they're not going to get in trouble for this. I really don't, because they've covered their asses. Well, no, we never said it was extraterrestrial. Go back and look. At one point, Elizondo said, he only said it once in an interview, but that it's not a drone issue. He's only said that once. Every other interview that has been asked a question in that realm, he has always talked about adversarial drones and them being an issue.
That could have been catastrophic for that airplane and possibly the crew member on board if he couldn't get out. And we see consistent incursions around sensitive government facilities. So, General, why are the current drone detection and defeat systems that we currently have, why are they failing? And could you maybe go into why we need to continue to field these outdated measures?
Well, Senator, one of the things we have to continue to work on is to continue to understand the technology that's moving forward and then move at the same pace as it was highlighted. We do have to move faster. If you go back to what happened in December, one of the things I did as a chairman was establish a cross-functional team that wasn't just from the military, but also the interagency to work together on this particular problem set, because it's a combination of factors. It's not only the detection, but it's the defensive systems that you use and how those may impact civil aviation and other areas. And so it's an area that we collectively have to continue to work on. Not only here.
There you go. That's how confusing and crazy this issue is, because if you do have a drone swarm above the base, right, and let's say it's an airfield, and there's 10 of them sitting up there, but you've also got your planes flying through this area. You've got commercial planes flying through the area, and if you aim a weapon that takes down these drone systems, you got to also make sure that it doesn't take out an actual commercial plane. And the technology of these drones is moving so quickly, they can't keep up. So again, and I don't think it's definitely not remote viewing when I say a terrorist attack is going to happen using drone swarms. And when it does happen, people are going to have a shit ton of questions as to how this happened. And how could you let this happen? And the Department of Defense is going to turn around and say, oh, well, no, we've been trying. Look at this since 2017. Look at all the things that we've done to establish ourselves to make sure that things like this don't happen. I know this one slipped through, but trust me, bro, we'll get the next one. We'll get the next one if we had a bigger budget anyway. And boom, there you go. Approved budgets. It's a problem. It's a big, big problem. And a lot of people want to mock me in spaces because this is the number one. This is the biggest issue within this topic. It's never been about NHI. It's never been about aliens. Never. This is what it's been about. And the NHI alien discussion has kept us all excited and distracted from the real issue at hand. And it's been staring us in the face the whole time. And the military is really good at that. The military is really good at hiding a secret right in front of you. They do it all the time. And I think this is one of these instances. Much rather have people saying, oh man, it could be aliens. What if it's extraterrestrials? Instead of saying, fuck, that's Iran. What the fuck is Iran doing over our nuclear facility? And what instruments are those on there? And what data did they collect? Which set of questions do you think the DoD rather handle?
Here in the United States, but also at our forward locations where we have many of our service members deployed.
Okay, well, we are prepared to work with you on that to make sure we have the right technology moving forward, that we could do more to solve this problem. So thank you, General. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Right on time.
Thank you. Right on time, Senator Kelly.
Right on time, Senator Kelly. To answer this question, yes, I have. I have. But my experience is not evidence, Thor. It's always so hard for you guys to wrap your brains around that. Especially experiencers. Your experience is not evidence. And that sucks. It sucks to hear. It sucks to come to terms with. But that's just the way it is. That is the collective reality. People will listen, but it's not evidence. I mean, if I could find every single person that was at that barbecue, track them down, and get their viewpoints on what they saw that night, and documented all of it, and charted all of it, and recreated it in computer drawing, computer simulations, like we could get a pretty... If I could do that, if I could find all of those people and do all of those things, it still wouldn't be evidence. Because it's a story from 30 years ago. Raise the bar for what you think evidence is. That's all I will tell you, Thor. Raise your bar. Okay, what else do we got here? Okay, this was incredibly interesting. This was a message from Chris Lehto about his mental breakdown. And yeah, I mean, I listened to this, and I'm not laughing because I'm making fun of him. I'm chuckling to myself because I don't know. Well, you guys listen to it, and then I'll talk about it.
Okay, so I did have what's called acute psychosis. Basically, introduced with crazy synchronicities that I saw in my own life. I can only say, yeah, your brain actually goes off the rails sometimes. I have PTSD from my career in the Air Force. I hadn't dealt with it. And I think that all just spiraled together, kind of cycled together to put me, off kilter, actually get my brain off kilter to where I just went, off the rails.
He went off the rails. So he's admitting that the information and all of the stuff that he was being told was leading him to have extreme views and leading him to have extreme theories to a point where it drove him, where he thought he was Thanos and at the snap of a finger, the world was going to end. He predicted the world ending and having a spiritual awakening. at the snap of his fingers. He did a whole live stream leading up to this snap. And then the next day, he smashed a guitar on his show. Like, and again, a year before this happened, I reached out to Chris and said, hey, the information you are doing and basing your belief system on is bad info, bud. Like, I'm just telling you as a friend. Like, I'm reaching out to you privately. You're getting played on this shit. And I think it was after that fucking video he did where some guy brought him footage of a UFO, and it was literally an LED light in a dark room. Like, it was the fakest shit, and Chris was pushing it as real. Every single video that he's ever gotten has been real. He came into this very skeptical. He came into this with a really wonderful viewpoint. And again, another expert and another very smart person to come into this topic, get burned, used, thrown out, and now he's back for seconds.
A theory I thought was correct. I still think many parts of the theory are correct.
So he hasn't let go of many parts of the theory.
That light makes up matter. Matter is actually made of light. I think we will find that out through artificial intelligence. But I found that theory, and combined with all these other things going on in my life, combined with PTSD, just kind of, put me off the rails. And what I found many Americans actually deal with, 57 million Americans are dealing with mental health issues.
57 million. And you want to know something? In the UFO discussion, that is more common than anywhere. PTSD, head trauma, violence, human suffering, trauma, deep-seated trauma with almost every single person who went as extreme as this guy did. Almost every single one.
My body feels fine. It feels great. My body feels better than I can remember. But your mind actually is a very important part of your body. And I think for me, I just had an episode in dealing with past issues, dealing with PTSD. I'm working through that now. And I just want to say thank you so much to the community, all the amazing community members. And that comes from my wife as well. She wanted to say thank you as well to all the amazing support that the community gave, because this is a very difficult topic.
It's not, Chris. You're the one making it difficult. You're the one adding your belief and your theories and creating this issue for yourself. And I wish your wife and therapist would see that. But they're not in UFO Twitter. They're just all they're trying to do is get you to come back to some modicum of normal. And then maybe they could slowly get this other stuff out of the conversation. And maybe one day we could get back to the original Chris Lehto that came into this with some really skeptical viewpoints and showed his work and had great debates with Mick West and lost those debates to Mick West. He's a really nice guy, and I hope he gets better. I really genuinely do. But I don't have high hopes. He still believes these theories. He still believes this stuff is real. And so I don't know if doing this show, I'm not a medical expert. Who the hell am I to say? But I don't think doing this show, just my opinion, I don't think doing this show is going to help him. And the support that he's getting are the same people who threw him into the hole that he's in. So, Godspeed, Chris Bledsoe. I genuinely hope you get better. Nah, I don't want to play that one. Here's that the manta ray craft. The Northrop Grumman debuts manta ray robotic underwater glider. Wonder how fast this thing goes underwater. I wonder if Tim Gallaudet, the information maybe he saw was one of these things. He didn't even see it. He just heard about it. He didn't see any of these things. Tim Gallaudet hasn't seen anything. The thing that convinced Tim Gallaudet, I learned in a private conversation the other day, was the gimbal footage. Or excuse me, the Go Fast. He saw the Go Fast on a military server, and that convinced him the phenomenon was real. And here we are, almost 2 decades later, and it has been definitively determined, there is no arguing this, that Go Fast is going 40 miles an hour. It is the parallax effect. And it could be one of a billion things that we've talked about ad nauseum on this show. But what we do know is that not one of the 5 observables is in that Go Fast video, and that it's going slow. Those are the things we know. So if you're going to base your entire belief system off of that, good luck. Especially when the information is out there that it's not going fast. I mean, you would think that would sort of make you go back and question everything else, because if that video is not an alien UAP, NHI, paranormal object, then wouldn't that make you question everything you've done since seeing that on a military server? Especially now that the facts have come to the surface on it. No, it doesn't. Tim Gallaudet just fucking doubles down on it, baby. Digging them heels. Woo! I'm on the Soul Foundation. I'm on Americans for Safe Aerospace. I'm in the Nanu Project. What else is there? Fucking Galileo. Yeah, whichever one hits with the government, I want to make sure I'm sitting on the board of. So I'm gonna join all of them. Oh man. This was also really cool. Oh, so yeah, this is why I wanted to talk about Ross Coulthart. So last night, Ross Coulthart tweets this. Anyone know how to make sense? Oops. Where'd it go? Come on, don't move slow, internet. Don't do this to me. You know what? I'm going to cut this. And yeah, there we go. So he writes, anyone know how to make sense of this wave height data in Southern Atlantic, 10th of April? Was there really an anomalous massive wave peaking over 14 meters? And then writes, despite numerous reports of UFOs or Atlanteans launching from the ocean, yesterday's image of the giant waves near Africa was due to a model error. Fortunately, our provider, the German Meteorological Institute, has already resolved it, and the forecast is fine. So yeah, these images popped up online yesterday, and every single conspiracy theorist under the sun thought that aliens were here, or that a massive wave was going to destroy these continents, instead of waiting for the right information to actually surface. But Stephen Greenstreet writes, UFO activist Ross Coulthart asked his fellow ex-followers about this blob on a map. Responses he got were unsurprisingly about aliens and spooky conspiracy things. He actually had he actually done some investigation and asked Ventusky.com directly, he would have known it was just a glitch on their end. And right, Coulthart is, quote, an investigative journalist at News Nation. Like, he can't get this simple shit right. He can't get child abuse right in Parliament. The only news station that will pick him up for bullshit is News Nation. Yeah, I don't know how many more times we're going to allow Ross Coulthart to do stuff like this. You know, the craft's so big it can't be moved. All of the innuendos and implying and all of the fucking trust me bros. Like, when are you guys all the calling of death of American citizens who are hiding this information? Like, when are we going to say enough's enough? Fuck you, Ross Coulthart. Go kick rocks, man. I'm done. Unsubscribing. And I can't burn the audiobook. But you know what I mean. Okay, so Christopher Mellon and his op-ed. Let's get into it, I guess. So Christopher Mellon wrote 9 hours ago. Arrow's recent report on the history of the United States government and UAP was perhaps the worst government report I've ever seen. Adding insult to injury, its findings were uncritically reported by the mainstream press to help set the record straight. I consulted, this is hilarious. I consulted a group of UAP researchers and historians. Okay. I hope the resulting article will provide or will prove helpful to all concerned, including Arrow itself. And then we click on this and we get this massive, massive op-ed on the Debrief, which we've covered the Debrief ad nauseum here, especially when we ended the show, the UCR show, that is. There are so many red flags about the Debrief, the biggest one being Tim McMillan. The stories that I heard, the story specifically, and I'm pretty sure I told this story before, and if I haven't, well, I guess get ready for this one. So for the first big phone home, yeah, I definitely told this story. The first big phone home, after it's done, you know, I was in contact with the Debrief a lot because they were helping me. We had Jazz Shaw, we had Michael Mataluni, we had Ryan Sprague, we had Chrissy Newton. And I was like, yeah, I would love for you guys to be involved with this, you know, and help us basically promote it. And their viewpoint was, well, we're a journalistic institution. We can't help promote what is seen as a political movement. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. And legitimately, that makes sense. Even today, even though I don't consider this a journalistic entity at all, this is just a lot of opinion writing on this website. But this website is also the only... It's the only medium that would tell the world about Dave Grusch. The world found out about Dave Grusch through the Debrief. Now, why is that? Why did Dave Grusch go to the Debrief? He didn't go to him first. He didn't go to him second. He didn't go to him third. He went to them when he was all out of options. The Washington Post said, yes, we'd love to take a look at this. And we're going to look at it. And we're going to put some journalists on it. And they did. And they sat on it for quite a bit. And there was a rush to get the story printed because Dave Grusch's information was about to come out. And they wanted the story out now. The Washington Post said, well, we can't put the story out now because we haven't been able to verify any of the claims that David Grusch is making. Not one of the claims, other than his name, you know, and what he did for a living. But past that, none of those claims can be verified. So Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal, right? They're the ones who wrote this one too. they're like, well, if you don't print this story, we're going to go somewhere else and get it printed because now this is this is time sensitive. We have to get this out. So the Washington Post was left with one of two choices. Either A, we can just believe what Ralph Blumenthal and Leslie Kean are writing in this story and publish it, and we could believe what David Grusch is saying and publish it, or we could just walk away because this doesn't meet our journalistic standards. And what did the Washington Post do? They walked away. Where was the first and only place that they could then go with this story? The good old Debrief, the website that is nothing but fucking ads that pop up. You can't even read a story. Like, I'll just leave this here and you'll see that the page will shift because the amount of ads that pops up on this fucking website is infuriating. So I just want everybody to consider who's publishing this before you add any merit to it. Before you take any of this stuff with anything more than a grain of salt. This is the worst place that you should do an op-ed, especially if you're Christopher Mellon with all the national security connections you have and with all of the evidence that I'm sure you could provide. You would think that a major, more credible news publication would be willing to let him do an op-ed like this. Nope. Just a debrief. There's so many red flags about the debrief. The biggest being that every person who works there, with the exception of MJ Banias, is a believer. Every single person. Yeah. It's just as simple as that. Especially with the people that I've interacted with. Ryan Sprague, Jazz Shaw. Jazz Shaw won't even talk to me anymore because I told him that, yeah, this stuff isn't real. And he was the biggest supporter of this show, both financially and from a social media standpoint. He was our loudest voice for the Big Phone Home. And he didn't give a shit what the Debrief thought about political movements. He's like, I don't care. They're not my boss. I'm an independent, contractor for them, basically. So if anybody knows about anything about Jazz Shaw, nobody's gonna censor Jazz Shaw. But the one thing that scared me, see how the website just flickers like that? So annoying. The one thing that scared me was after the Big Phone Home, Michael Mataluni got an angry phone call from Tim McMillan. Basically upset with Michael for doing the Big Phone Home. And Tim had expressed to him that he had friends at the Department of Defense that were calling Tim McMillan and asking him, why the fuck are your employees doing this? Michael told me this story. And when I heard it, it scared the absolute shit out of me. Because I was like, why is a guy in Tim McMillan who lives in Germany on a military base getting angry after the fact? He knew Michael was coming to help co-host the Big Phone Home. He knew that was happening. So why is he yelling at Mike after? And after this went down, Mike quit. It did not sit well with him. He's like, I don't like being spoken to like that. I don't like being told what to do like that. And they're not fucking paying me. Above all of everything else, Michael Mataluni was not being paid by the Debrief. So he's like, as far as I'm concerned, they could go fucking kick rocks. And that's exactly what happened. He quit the Debrief. But that just scared me. Because I was like, why is a guy in Germany getting phone calls from the Department of Defense and yelling at Michael for doing what? Advocating for more transparency on the things that your publication writes about? It was so strange. But it was just scary in the fact that the Department of Defense is telling the free press how to report things and how they are allowed to cover things. That's just weird. Why? I was so concerned by it. I was so scared. Because I just found it so odd. I called Sean Cahill and was like, hey man, like, I just learned some very startling stuff. And I don't know who to trust. And at the time, I put my trust in Cahill. Bad choice. Very bad choice. What's funny is me and Chrissy Newton, who's a publicist for UFO celebrities. That's like her main source of income as far as I can see. Chrissy Newton and I had lunch at the Roosevelt in Hollywood. And, I was expressing to her my concerns. And we were talking about Michael, and she was super confident that Mataluni was going to go back to the debrief. And I told her, not after the phone call he had with your boss. No, he's not. You guys are never going to see Mataluni again. I was wrong. Mataluni did go back, but it was only for a week. Because as soon as he went back, he's like, oh, yeah, this is still just as disorganized and is just as much of a shit show. And the thing that annoyed him the most were the meetings that the debrief would hold with everyone who works there. And they would just sort of go over the plans for the month or whatever. And Mike would say, these were the most unproductive meetings that I would ever take part in. In fact, they would get me so frustrated. I just left. I left the meeting because I was like, you guys are doing the same shit that I was getting annoyed with the first time. And on top of everything else that happened. And yeah, he's like, I'm out. And he never went back. So yeah, it was just fucking weird. So that's where this 60-page op-ed sits, is on that website. So I think that's important to take into consideration. And again, this is a link that I will include in the description below. So if you guys want to read this entire op-ed, you can do it at your own free will. Set aside about an hour because, yeah, it's going to take you a little while to read. But what I wanted, I'm not going to read this whole thing. It's just, it's too ridiculous. But what I wanted to get to were, I believe he has first of all, the resources, Robert Powell. And Micah Hanks. Marieke von Klompenstein thinking, well, John Greenwald, there was these sources. Okay, so yeah, they used, I guess, a quote from him. Okay, so here's the conclusion of this op-ed. As documented above, and let me also say this, the Arrow report is not singular. There are other aspects of this report that are still coming. And the reports will never stop coming. They will always be a UAP report with new scientific information. I think the reports will get more in-depth as the office is more established. This is literally the first report out of the gate. And this guy is writing a damning op-ed on a report that hasn't been 100% seen yet. So there's that. But let's get to his conclusion on this op-ed. As documented above, Arrow has not complied with the statutory orders from Congress for a detailed history of UAP sightings as recorded in the United States historical records. I can tell you the reason why is because they just simply haven't had enough time yet. They're trying to get the things that people are addressing today gimbal, go fast, tic tac, 2017, Nimitz, all of that stuff. I think that's what this first part of the report is concentrating on. I would think that the first few reports will be discussing the things that are happening today, not what happened in fucking Roswell 70 fucking years ago. So stupid. Instead, providing a limited history of flawed U.S. government investigations of UAP. A limited history because the report itself is limited. There was no examination. And here's another thing. Christopher Mellon bitches and complains for years about how slow government is and how they're always late. This report was delivered early to Congress and ahead of schedule, and he bitches about that. Well, it must not have been taken seriously if that's the case. No, they just released what they had, and that's what they had as far as when Kirkpatrick left, so that's what they released, so then he could go and do interviews and talk about that first report. So it's not limited. We just haven't seen the rest of it. There was no examination of the impact of stigma. I agree. There was no impact, no examination of the impact of stigma, but I could tell you, and just go listen to Kirkpatrick again, the NSSA interview that he did, the interview he did in the Scientific American, and the op-eds that he wrote in addition to the UAP report. And he addresses the stigma head on. And that was one of the first things that they had to address. And that was addressed through the reporting system. They put time limits. If you see a UAP, you have to report it within 72 hours. If you interact with a UAP, it has to be reported immediately. Within 12 hours, that report has to go to Arrow immediately, no matter where it happens, no matter how classified it is. That information has to be reported to the Department of Defense and Arrow, because they are, and now it's in training manuals. And now they're talking about it at aviation conferences. Killing the stigma of UAP because of safety issues that drones cause and air clutter cause. So the stigma was addressed. It wasn't addressed in the report only because I just don't think there was the bandwidth for that first report. But we'll be getting more. And I have a feeling that things like this, maybe they're addressed even better. But honestly, why do we need an examination of this? We know what's happening. The United States military created the stigma. The stigma then created a hole in our national security system, and now the Department of Defense is working to correct that through how people report these things and encouraging the reporting of these things, having lawmakers make laws that protect the reporting of these things, including reverse engineered programs. There are laws in place that keep people protected. All of it's already there. So I don't know if this first report needs an examination of the stigma. I think everybody is very clear about how stigma caused this fucking problem. And especially the Department of Defense knows that. Because, again, all of this is scrambling to catch up to make sure every single service member, and not only service members within the military, but this is also reaching, Kirkpatrick said that they are going to the local levels, law enforcement, fire departments, making sure that everyone is on the same page. How do they report it? Where do they report it to? All of these things still haven't been done. But the fact that you're making police departments, military bases, and colonels, and generals, and pilots, and all of them aware that, hey, if you see something weird in the sky over a sensitive military installation or over a sensitive power plant or a piece of infrastructure, say something. Please, no matter how weird it looks, please tell us about it. Because Digressing to what I was saying before, our enemies make them look weird on purpose to take advantage of the stigma. But in the last year, I think the Department of Defense has done a pretty good fucking job, and lawmakers have done a pretty good fucking job at making sure that the military is caught up to these procedures. And I don't know if Christopher Mellon can debate that. So there was no examination of the impact of stigma on the UFO subject, witnesses, and persons interested in it. Aggressively implemented by the Air Force and supported by the Air Force-instigated CIA Robertson panel. Despite the legal requirement for AARO to document the history of intelligence agency manipulation of public opinion and other abuses. How long, how many things, I think really this is just mismanaging your expectations, Christopher Mellon. Did anyone think that AARO was going to address all of these things in the very first report? They never set that expectation. Congress never set that expectation. You guys never set that expectation. So why don't we chill on the 60-page fucking op-ed and wait for these other reports to come out at least until the end of this year before we determine, oh, these reports are bullshit. Not enough about the stigma. So silly. Yet, as AARO itself acknowledged in its first report to Congress, the stigma surrounding this topic has been a central problem in terms of getting government personnel or scientists to report or study UAP. That's not accurate. It's just not accurate. It's not in the report, but it sure as fuck is in the reporting system. Like, you could bet your ass that the United States Navy, Army, Marines, Space Force, Coast Guard, all of them, Department of Homeland Security, everyone is on the same page now to report these things. Especially after drones showed up over, Montana during the Super Bowl, not only this year, but the year before. Sorry, that's just not accurate. The AARO report is best with basic errors of fact and science. For instance, despite AARO insinuations, Apollo moon landings cannot be seen by the naked eye from Earth. Manhattan Project buildings cannot fly in the air as UFOs, etc. Jeremy McGowan has a great response to this, and if we've got time, we'll read it. But literally, the space program was built in front of the American people. They saw it built from the ground up, and so did our enemies. But you can bet your ass there were layers upon layers upon layers upon layers of different classifications and what people had access to about all of those missions, the communications of those missions, the landing zones, all sorts of classified stuff that the public had no clue about. Radio systems, communication systems that were super advanced and high tech that eventually made it into our, like, the space program was funded to beat our enemies to the moon. And in that race of technology, we found a lot of cool shit. A lot of cool shit. And we continue to make discoveries through space travel. And those discoveries are applied to national security. They're applied to the public sector. People make their money. They always make their money. Okay? The Manhattan Project. One of the most top secret, if not the most top secret, military projects of all time. The building of the atom bomb. Like, let's say it took them 60 years to figure it out. You don't think we know about the Manhattan Project if they were still working on it? Trust me, man, leaks would have come out by now. Like, you can't keep this stuff secret forever. And there were leaks coming out about the Manhattan Project before it was announced. Our enemies were getting information. I mean, like, it was a tough thing to keep a lid on. And that goes for any secret in the United States. It's very difficult to keep these things secret forever, especially if it's technology that they're actively working on. Again, we go back to that manta ray drone, the underwater drone. I promise you, they've used that thing in missions. They've tested it for years. It is clocked actual time servicing the United States military. It's not a brand new thing that they're just putting on all their boats today. Like, that's not the way the military works. It's just not. The report makes unsupported claims about the secret government projects causing civilian UAP sightings while ignoring the military's own sightings of UAP that military knew were not our own. So he was referencing the U-2. When they would fly not only the U-2, the stealth bomber, the F-117 Nighthawk, any experimental plane that the United States military has worked on, when they fly, sometimes they fly it over major populated areas just to see what the response is going to be. And the spike of UFO reports in every single case that these planes fly over the United States and they're able to be seen, the UFO reports go up with them. Because in 1960 something, people look, and they see a shining object in the sky way above any plane at the time would be, moving at speeds that they've never seen. Yeah, they're going to report it as a UFO. I mean, there's direct correlation with that stuff. And again, ignoring the military's own sightings, this report is not finished yet. And if he had listened to Kirkpatrick, he would have learned that they are recreating the gimbal in a lab. They're actually going to put scientists, they're going to write a paper on this so they could show everyone that the gimbal was a jet. Because that's what it was, probably. But they're not going to definitively say that until they can recreate it in a lab using the exact same equipment that was on that plane. So when that stuff starts coming out, this won't make any sense. Again, we're writing a 60-page op-ed on a report that essentially is never ending. There's always going to be information coming out because that's what's mandated by Congress. They have to give a classified report and a civilian report. I think it's every 6 months, twice a year. We're going to get another one this year, maybe even 2. Arrow never defines what evidence they would accept for extraterrestrial visitation. Why would anybody have to define that? I think it would be fucking crystal clear if we were looking at evidence of extraterrestrial visitation. It would be crystal fucking clear. Real to help. So never defines what evidence they would accept for extraterrestrial visitation or even UAP existence to help avoid repeating past failures of UAP investigations. So all of the reports of extraterrestrial visitations were repeated failures from the past because people can't tell the difference between human-made tech and alien tech, really? I don't think that's the problem. It seems Arrow's unstated definition of evidence is a fluid goalpost. I don't think that's what it says at all. And again, like, alien evidence isn't fluid. It isn't fluid. If there's evidence, it's an, you know, like Bob Lazar said, it's a piece of element 115. Element 115 only exists at a micro level for a fucking a little fart of time. Actual solid element 115 does not exist on this planet. Not yet. So if anyone popped out with an actual chunk of element 115 and said, hey, this is the fuel that the UFOs work on, you'd have to take that incredibly seriously. And to me, that would be pretty good, a great fucking start on evidence. And there's nothing fluid about that. Everything outside of that is fluid and moves the goalposts, like talking about moving the fucking goalposts. Ufology does that constantly. Constantly. There are massive gaps in Arrow's review of important U.S. government documents, records, and programs, and patterns of excessive UAP secrecy. The report focuses on prior government UAP investigations without even acknowledging that they were more of an effort to delegitimize the topic than to investigate it. Again, you are punishing the kids for the sins of their fathers. Arrow did not delegitimize and add stigma onto this topic. That was you guys. That was the Department of Defense. That was the Army, Navy that put that shit on there. The powerful effects of the stigma that resulted are never discussed, despite universal recognition of the primary role stigma has played in preventing objective government or scientific UAP research. By failing to do so, this Arrow report is more likely to reinforce this dangerous, dysfunctional stigma rather than to mitigate it. That's a fucking opinion. Because again, I cannot stress to you, Arrow has put a mandatory reporting system that eliminates the stigma. It encourages the report. And it mandates it. You have to report it. As skeptic journalist Tyler Rogaway said, and bears repeating, quote, the gross inaction and the stigma surrounding unexplained aerial phenomena as a whole has led to what appears to be the paralyzation of the systems designed to protect us and our most critical military technologies, pointing to a massive failure in U.S. military intelligence. Again, if this was 2019, yes, you're right. You're right. But you can't say this now because there's not inaction. There's nothing but action from Arrow. Like, there's nothing but, and that is lawmakers saying it. The people that you asked to put these things in place, they are now put in place. And you're eviscerating it before it's even out of its infancy. Like the office literally just opened last year. They hired everyone last year. Finally, Arrow has unaccountably imported the limited approaches to evidence used in academia that are not appropriate basis for intelligence assessments of national security issues. Has unaccountability. Why ask pilots to report UAP if we're going to then discard these reports because they do not meet some strict narrow vision academic scientific standard? That's not true at all. What Arrow has to do is separate the wheat from the chaff. If you saw something weird and it doesn't fit within the categories of things that could fall into known, then you report it to Arrow. Like, it has to meet, it can't just be a balloon. It can't just be something, like, it has to be genuinely unknown for the office to look at it, because it doesn't want to waste its time at looking at Starlink. It doesn't want to waste its time, looking at a case where a pilot misidentifies something that's in that area. They want the diamonds in the rough, so then that way they can scientifically analyze the most difficult cases to get answers to. It's not a narrow-visioned academic scientific standard. It's, hey, if it's going to be considered anomalous, it has to meet the anomalous criteria. And again, that's written into law. Like, you helped write this shit, Mellon. Like, this is your legislation. Why is it that the human mind and intellect can contribute to intelligence assessments of any other topic but UAP? Oh my God, man. Because when people see an aircraft go down, the remnants of the aircraft are there. Like, it's tangible. It's recoverable. What about future scientific developments and scientifically unpredictable intentions of foreign adversaries? In sum, this limited approach to analysis uniquely applied to the subject of UAP within the intelligence community deprives policymakers of judgments based on information that is important, valid, and compelling, even if it's not at present scientifically conclusive. I hope this report will help Congress, the press, and the public understand just how far short Arrow's historical UAP report is from being, quote, thorough, accurate, and complete. I also hope Arrow will find some of these observations helpful in preparing Volume 2. Buddy, they've already been working. Volume 2 is probably already done. There's no reason this taxpayer-funded organization cannot be more clear, transparent, and accurate regarding its UAP analysis and reporting. I would, if this was like Marco Rubio or Senator Gillibrand that had received the classified version of the UAP Arrow report, writing an op-ed like this, that would make me stand up and go, okay, what the fuck's going on? What's going on here? Why is this office not meeting the standards that Congress set? But they are. And that's why you don't hear stuff like that from Senator Gillibrand and Rubio. You only hear it from Christopher Mellon. And I hate to break it to you, Mellon, but the debrief is not the press. And the public doesn't read the debrief. They have no fucking clue who the debrief is. Maybe you should have put this op-ed in the New York Times or Time Magazine, or maybe you should have, I think it would have been more helpful on your fucking blog on Medium, if I'm being honest. And then acknowledgments. This article is only possible due to the diligent research and extraordinary contributions of quite a few UAP experts and researchers. So no skeptics, nobody with a different point of view, just a bunch of people who have built an echo chamber and have written a 68-page op-ed. And these researchers, by the way, who shall remain nameless here, but who freely contributed their time and expertise. Their astute analysis and expertise from the backbone of this article. It took substantial effort on their part, but I know they will be satisfied if this helps Congress and the public understand how much work remains to be done to create a, quote, complete and accurate history of UAP and the United States government. Ay, ay, ay. So an echo chamber wrote this op-ed. So another reason why not to take this op-ed seriously. I think this is just a childish response to a report that isn't finished yet. It really, really is. And it's not giving the office a fair shake. And I'm not just saying that. Those were things that Christopher Mellon and Lou Elizondo were saying. Hey guys, when these laws do take place, when these offices are created, we have to be patient. We got to give them time to create the office, create standards, create protocols, create workflow. Like those things, it's a startup essentially. And these guys are writing a 68-page op-ed as if they've been around for 15 years and we're still getting this. Like if this was the 15th report and we were getting similar stuff, it's either we're getting similar stuff because that's all there is to it. I don't, I don't know if we get, like, again, if an alien crash came into our atmosphere, an alien craft came into our atmosphere, I think it would be on a lot of people's radar first before it was on Arrow's. Like, it would, Arrow's the people, they just take the reports and then they cross-reference them with every intelligence community department there is to gather as much intel on that report as possible, write about it, and then present their conclusions on what happened. But these guys want Roswell. Give us the answer to Roswell. Where are the bodies? Where are the reverse engineered craft? We want that in report 1. It's just an unrealistic, if those things do exist, I think Arrow is positioned perfectly to find those things. And it's like, not everyone in government is fucking evil. I think a majority of people in government are just like a majority of people in real life. They're just trying to do their job and the right thing. And so, people want to blame Kirkpatrick. He's not the only scientist at Arrow. NASA is also contributing to researching the things that Arrow's looking at. So this is not just one person. This is a big group of very intelligent people, scientists, academics, people within the intelligence communities, people that work at NASA. Cream of the crop. I mean, the bona fides on Kirkpatrick's resume versus Grusch, you can't even compare. You can't compare the military records. Kirkpatrick is way more well-known, way more respected, way more educated, had way higher classifications. Is a scientist. Guy has a doctorate. Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. So, yeah, that's really all I have to say about this report. this op-ed. It's a joke. And I would go check out, I was going to get to this sort of, we just don't have time. We've run over the 2-hour time slot here, guys. But yeah, I mean, I would go and check out. I'm also going to include Jeremy McGowan's response to this. Let me see here. There we go. I'm going to include, it's just too long to read right now for you guys. I don't have enough time. But I'm going to include this in the link below. So after the show, if you're watching after the show, I'll have these links up literally in a couple of minutes. As soon as I end the show, I'll include them in the show links. So just give me a couple minutes and all those will be there. But this was a great rebuttal to Christopher Mellon. And then also Jeremy McGowan also FOIA'd Lou Elizondo's ATIP work history, which again, we have found nothing. We have found nothing that he was in charge of ATIP. It's just as far as we can tell, he just said it. In the IG office, that was not their job to look into that. So, yeah, it's a shit show. Anyway, you guys, that is the show. That is the week in UFOs. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you had a good time. See something here real quick. Yeah. All right. Oh, let me turn that down. There we go. All right. You guys, yeah, this is a cool show. It was fun. I've had a lot of interesting and great conversations and interactions. Our first Twitter space was a lot of fun that we had with B. Yeah. I mean, there have been, I think, 2 or 3 people that have been very adamant that I lost that debate, which it wasn't even a debate. It was a conversation. But I think for somebody who is learning about the parapsychology aspect of the phenomenon, I think I stumped her pretty good a couple times. That's just me. But I wasn't looking to stump. That wasn't the point of it. And if I could, go back through that 2 almost 3-hour Twitter space and edit out all the moments that I asked questions that couldn't get answered, there'd be a lot more of those than there would be of me going, maybe, or I don't know. A lot more. But that's not why I had the conversation, so I'm not going to do that. But it's just interesting to see what hoops people will jump through to convince themselves that all of this stuff is real. Yeah. Anyway, the conversations have been fun. The interactions have been great for the most part. I was in a space today with, I think his name's Wakata, if I'm not mistaken. And, people came up and asked me questions, for the most part, pretty civil. But then you get these guys who come up with what's clearly a very aggressive opinion of me. And, and they ask their questions aggressively or with some sort of backhanded compliment or, just a really smart ass way of approaching you. And so when I respond in kind, then it's like, well, you don't have to be so mean. Fuck you. Like, if you want respect, show it. And I think that the whole point of these conversations is to show when the respect is given, respect is granted. And I think there was nothing but respect between B and I, even though we wildly disagree. And I think, who knows, maybe one day we'll sway her. Maybe not change her mind, but we'll sway her to think about these things a little more rationally. So yeah, so the conversations have been great. The week has been very interesting. Very, very interesting week this week. This is probably one of the craziest weeks I've seen on UFO Twitter. And I think it's only getting started. And I think we'll cover some of this stuff next week. I have a feeling, but we'll see. I'm sure there'll be some more spaces. Actually, I think I know what my next space is going to be. And I think well, I'll see if he's available, but I would love to have a conversation if he's even in the chat right now. Matt Riot, if you're in the chat, I'd love to bring you into a space and and lay it all out. Talk about the stuff that we've discussed about the people that are turning in on each other right now. So, and sort of address some accusations that are being made by the most extreme of people in this discussion. So that could be fun. Let's see here. Oh, thanks, 75 YBA. Appreciate it. All right. And I think that's it, you guys. Of course, thank you all so damn much for being here. I genuinely, I cannot thank you all enough. It's always a pleasure to do this show for you guys. Before we get out of here, I want to say thank you to my wonderful mod, Arden Paranormal. We just made friends on Facebook, so hey, Arden. Brad Burry, thanks for being here. Thor, even though I don't think you like the show, thanks for being here. Greg O'Brien, thanks for being here. Wild Fools, thanks for being here. I don't know about that. I would probably not go to that one. Jason Brown, thanks for being here. Sparky Pilot, thank you for being here. Zach Hyde, Dana Shadell, thank you all so damn much for being here. If I didn't shout out your name, I apologize, but I do love you. Anyway, with all of that said, you guys, enjoy your weekend. Please do not forget to smash the like, share, and subscribe button and ring the bell. That way you're notified anytime we go live, which is every Friday or every Monday and Friday from 3 to 5. And then our spaces on Wednesdays from 3 to 5 as well on Twitter. And like I've been telling you guys, every week we've been releasing an old UCR episode. This week we re-released the Big Phone Home Part 2, Episode 1, which is a 10 and a half, almost 11-hour live stream with all of some of the coolest guests in the UFO topic. And we had the first ever all-ladies panel where I gave the show keys to UFO Jane, and I said, hey, get a group of women that are in the topic, because everybody always complains that there's not enough women, there's not enough people of color in this discussion. So we're going to do a whole panel with nothing, where just women take over the show. And we brought on Lou Elizondo, and the ladies interviewed him, and I thought it was honestly one of the best interviews with Lou Elizondo out there. So go check it out. It's available now. It's public. It's free to everyone, and there is a warning label in the description. So again, a lot of that stuff is old pseudoscience information. So take anything that you hear on that with a grain of salt. But you know, again, we'll be re-releasing old UCR episodes every week. I haven't decided what day, you know, kind of just do it as it comes to me. But yeah, just wanted to let you guys know that. So make sure you ring the bell. That way you're notified when we do go live. And if you want to support the show with the almighty dollar, please consider checking out our Patreon. Become a YouTube member like all of the folks with the green handles here in the live chat. If you want to be a member, super simple. Just hit the member button down below. And yeah, once again, thank you for embarking on this journey of discovery together. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and thank you for subscribing to Lee Reviews. Until next time, thank you all out there for helping raise the bar. Have a killer weekend. See y'all next week. Peace out. Oh, I want to say hello to Brad Burry, Sandra McDonald, Roger Marshall, John Hunsley. Thank you guys for being here. Shane, if you make it to the end of the show, thanks for being here.